decided we were going to look at moving and putting our house on the market. And so it was time to start looking at houses that we could move to. And so there's all these online apps. You can go to realtor.com and Zillow. And I'm scrolling through, looking at all different areas. And I find this house and it has this great porch around it. Don and I have always wanted a house with a wraparound porch. And it was an older home, but the pictures made it look, it was probably 100-year-old. The charmingness, it had been based on the pictures, had been updated and renovated. And it was just, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with this house. And my youngest daughter and I drove out there. It's in a very rural area. It's way south of Charlotte, Union County. It's the furthest, if you're from this area, it's in Marshville. And so then we're looking around at other areas, realizing that's kind of far away. And we didn't really go see the inside of the house. We had just driven past it. So we're looking in all different areas. And then we're going to go look at another house not far from there. So I'm like, I want to go see it. And so we go out with our realtor and we get out. And I knew the outside needed work. I could tell it was still wood, but I didn't know how much work.
Oh my gosh.
The property, they had started remodeling it, but had not finished. And so they had like all kinds of wood siding in the back to finish remodeling it. The pictures they showed were like, they made it look amazing. They showed the best parts of it. And, we'd looked at some other older houses that I still really liked a lot, but this one I said I immediately fell out of love. It wasn't all it was cracked up to be from the outside. It still needed so much work.
Well, and what was interesting about it too is that they had like started things in certain rooms, but then not finished. Like they didn't finish any of the rooms.
Yeah, it was so different than what we expected. I knew the area was questionable. I knew the outside needed some work of the house, but no idea. And you look at those pictures online and you really don't get a full sense of it. Sometimes they take wide angle lens, so they make it look twice as big as it is, or they Photoshop it a little bit. They leave out the areas that need work. They don't show the ceiling or the floor, and they don't give you the whole picture of it. And
well, some of them, it makes it look like there's this big long driveway or this big long yard, and you get there and it's half the size of what you thought it would be. So, well, hello, this is Don.
And this is Gina.
And this is podcast number 76. And today we're really talking about how to adapt, I guess.
Adapt and juggle and
a lot of different things.
We haven't come up with a clear name.
But before we do that, we want to give a word from our sponsor.
Our sponsor is Q Sciences. I've been a representative for Q Sciences for over a year. I found this company through a friend and did some research and reading about these products. And I really liked what I found when I learned about them. The research and time that they've put into the quality of these products to be better absorbed into the body. Things like the vitamin D spray. Our youngest was on a capsule vitamin D, and yet vitamin D levels remained the same with follow-up checkups. And with the spray, it increased.
Pretty strong.
Almost double.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking her levels were maybe 20. And I want to say they went up to 47 or something around that range. And the sleep spray is another great one. It's got melatonin, 5-HTP, and I believe another herbal supplement in there. And because it's a spray, you spray it on your tongue, it gets absorbed more quickly into your body to be more effective to help you in the moment. We're using the B12 spray. We've used the vitamin C spray. They have a Q Max product, which is a multivitamin.
And they also have the CBD, different, a variety of different,
It's full spectrum
full
hemp
spectrum, yes.
oils. They even have a THC free version. It comes in different flavors. There is a mushroom
Oh, yeah.
armor. It's called Q Armor. It's a powder, and I get the chai flavor. Put it in my chai tea for a double chai drink.
So instead of, as they say, flushing your supplements down, well, the toilet or the drain, you want to get something like this that's fully absorbed. It's like flushing money down the toilet too, if you're not using a supplement that absorbs well and does well for your body. So that's what Q Science is really about. It's a good, well absorbed, high nutrient product.
They have multiple products. They have child specific products. They now also have some facial cream products. I've been using a night cream to minimize the effects of sunlight and stress and aging on my skin. And they have a hemp lotion. That's also a wonderful product that we've tried. So check us out, learn more. You can find the link at our website,
www.focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can also go to focusedhealthyfamily.com/Q Sciences, the letter Q and Sciences.
with an S at the end.
With the S at the end, yes. And we're back. And we're juggling so much right now ourselves. Just we're trying to move. We have a daughter that lives 3 hours away that's needing some help of different things. And we have our youngest still at home that is doing robotics and different things, educational things that we're having to juggle a lot of balls in the air, let's say it that way, I guess.
And you didn't even mention my parents. My dad with his Parkinson's has his advanced dementia. He didn't have dementia at the beginning of his Parkinson's diagnosis. Not everybody with Parkinson's develops dementia, but his is advanced. And so we've been through quite a lot of last minute me jumping and running to help them out. So, we talk about the sandwich generation and being in the middle of all this. And we're really in the middle of all of it right now. I mean, I think we've already talked about how we reached out to these companies that will buy your house and remodel it, and you don't have to do much work. And we said, well, let's find out. And the next thing I know, we're selling our house. Then, it's under contract. The people came just earlier tonight. Someone in the family is a contractor, and they're already making plans of what measuring, how they're going to remodel it. Because we live in a great area and we have a good size house and a nice property, and yet it needs updating. It's a 54-year-old house. And we weren't in to do that. We wanted to downsize a little, and we wanted to make some changes. And so we're also going to get out of some debt by the money we're going to make from selling this house. And so that's going to help us financially. And yet now we can't really afford to stay in this area. So Charlotte is huge. So if you're not from North Carolina, it is a very large city area wise. And so we are looking all around the outskirts of it, and some of it borders South Carolina. And so for different reasons, we're not wanting to move to South Carolina. So
we've sent a realtor.
We brought our realtor on an adventure. I think he likes the adventure, the challenge of, he calls it finding us a unicorn. My parents live south of Charlotte right now, 40 minutes from us. Our daughter lives northeast, 3 hours away. Our son lives just 20 minutes away, northeast. And our daughter's robotics is southwest.
Our youngest daughter that's still here.
So we're like, okay, if we move this way, we're a little closer to Abby, but we're further from my parents, and we're really far from robotics. So we have been like juggling all this in our head and figuring out where we want to go, because we jumped into this with selling our house before we really thought about where we would move to. It kind of happened really fast.
They do it backwards.
And I realized I'm good at spontaneous jumping in. I've sort of discovered I'm cool in a crisis, which I never would have described myself as when I was younger. yet I've gotten so much experience with I'm I went up to Raleigh recently. Our middle daughter had a middle child had her wisdom teeth out. And I didn't know how long it was going to take. And I brought my backpack because I have gotten used to going to the hospital at a moment's notice. And I put everything that I need in my backpack and I grab it and go. So I had my snack bag and my backpack, and I sat in the room for 25 minutes, and then I had to go to the car because the procedure took like less than an hour. And she's like, "You brought all that stuff, Mom. You're probably only going to be on your phone." But I've gotten used to that between our daughters and mental health crises and my dad being in the hospital, Don's trips to the hospital with his heart attack and then his open heart surgery. And so jumping in and diving in the moment is, if I
Well,
could,
and then I'm sorry, go ahead.
if I could pursue a career but I don't know that I'd want a career like that, but it's sort of a skill I've acquired by default that if I created a new resume, I put it on there.
Well, we're also trying to blend all the desires of our kids and ourselves in finding this house. What our youngest wants, and because our youngest still lives here, so we got that, those desires. So we've really tried our best at balancing out and getting some of the things that she desires, some of the things that we both desire in this house, and that's a challenge because we've looked at a lot of houses.
Yeah. We
And
homeschool, so we don't have to look at school districts. So that was a big thing to take off the page. Yet, robotics is a big part of her life. And it's been 40 to 55 minutes to get there from where we currently live, which is a long drive. So we didn't want it to be longer than that. But also, I've jumped to my mom to help my dad out. She's in good health, but she is 80. And when my dad needs help, I've had to drop kind of what we're doing and drive down there. So right now I can do that in about 40 minutes. And so looking at some of these other places, will I be able to help them? We,
yeah,
we originally wanted to be closer to where they are. And unfortunately, closer to them is like prime real estate, and so really costly. It's just way out of our price range. And some of the houses there was one we were going to look at. It was on the market, I don't know, less than a week. We made the appointment, and then was it that day or the day before? Our realtor's like, they've got 2 other offers on the house. They're going to decide by the next day at 11 a.m. It was that day. Do you still want to go out there? Because it was at the end of our price range. We couldn't really bid higher. He said, there's a 95% chance you will not get this house. And it was a little on the small side. It was just, I was picking it because it was close to my parents. So
yeah. Well,
having all these things going on, and like we went and looked at houses, and I went to work, and then how did this go? I worked a lot of hours. I had a day off. I drove down to my parents with Lexi to sit with my dad so my mom can go get the car taken care of. We left there and drove all the way out to Rockwell to see some houses in
oh,
the
that's right.
very
Yeah, yeah.
wealthy section, and looked at some houses out there, and then came home that evening. And the next morning, my son and his fiance and I drove to Raleigh so that I could stay with my daughter for her to have her wisdom teeth out. And we helped her set up a TV and went to dinner together. And he went home. And then the next morning, got up real early to take her to her wisdom teeth, and then came back to the house. We both took a long nap. I helped pack her up and the dog, and then drove her car back to Charlotte so she could be
Yeah.
here again recovering. And all the while, then, she's home recovering, and I go to work a half day the next day because I work weekends. So I can't give up all those hours. And so we worked half a day. You took me to work so you could pick me up, and then we could drive to the west.
Yeah.
Go
One
look
end
at,
of the world to the other, it felt
and
like.
our daughter's like, why did I come home? You're not even here. And because we stayed out there on that side of town to drive around. We didn't get home till late.
Yeah.
But
So
did all these things in, life
well,
is
it,
still happening. We're still growing a business. I'm still working part-time. We're creating podcasts. So that's why this podcast today is about figuring it all out. And
Well, just the fact that I'm sitting in a Panera's outside of robotics, because we've had a busy day. So I guess, it's how do we do it? How do we handle that? What is it about us that,
yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, I think it has, you have to have flexibility. You have to have the ability to say it's okay if this changes and this goes this direction, instead of that direction. Like, well, like even today, you realize that when we got home that you wanted to go back and see this one house, and the realtor came up with another one, and we had to say, okay, when can we do this? Let's look at, shuffle, 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 you know, and you're going to have to go because I have to work. And
Making a lot of quick decisions. And like our youngest went through the drama. We looked at houses in an area and she's like, okay, I like this about this. I like this about this. And then I'm like, okay, we're not going there. And then we put an offer on a house. She got all her hopes up. And then,
that
you know,
fell through. Yeah.
it's a lot for a kid. And I was reminiscing, I believe, for our last podcast about when I was a kid and we moved, that my parents just went out and found the house. And so we didn't take our daughter when we went today and when we went over the weekend. And it's kind of good for us to be able to kind of talk through things. And like
Yeah.
today, I brought her on FaceTime so she could see the house, and she needed to be home for an online appointment. And yet then tomorrow, because our realtor found another house out in that area to go look at, I'm like, okay, can we go back to the other one too? And then Lexi can see it. My
But
point is,
go
my
ahead.
point is being able to make decisions, realizing, okay, what's overwhelming to our child?
Yeah.
What we need to say,
How much
we
information?
want to be there, but because some of the houses we went to, we walked in, she's like, I don't like this. I don't like the energy. I don't like, and we're still like, well, but there's things we could do with this house.
Yeah.
And just realizing how that was affecting her emotionally. And she kind of learned to kind of regulate. And I think she's learned from the process of, you put a bid on a house, but you might not get it. And so you look and, there's other possibilities out there. And we've really had to trust in, first it was trusting in that someone was going to buy our house.
Mm.
And we're going to trust in that that's going to work out and that we're going to find something that we like and not have to settle. So there's just been a lot of learning experiences that have happened. And in some ways, I feel like I've done a lot of growth as a parent, because thinking about her and what's overwhelming for her, and okay, you and I need to discuss that, but we don't need to include her in that discussion. That's one thing with homeschooling our kids, you working from home. We've kind of grown up our kids in this idea that we're very open and honest with each other. But sometimes maybe there's too much sharing. Everybody knows a little bit too much about everybody else's business, that there needs to be boundaries. Sometimes there needs to be, there needs to be boundaries. I'm trying to think of the right word, to not overwhelm our kids with all our problems. They know about our financial struggles, and because it's been part of their life growing up. And yet, if I could do some things differently, I would, have said things differently or approach things differently with them. It's all a learning experience. It's all a journey.
Well, and I think, yeah, realizing that is a journey, realizing that we also still have to take care of ourselves, you and I both, in doing the things that relax us, or that, well, for us, a lot of times, like this morning, I loved that we tapped, and we listened to Esther Hicks,
Yeah,
to
we were going by ourselves because our youngest had to stay home to go see this house that turned out to only be a 40-minute drive. And so I listened to my Marco Polos from this women's group I'm part of and my coach. And we listened to a morning rampage by Abraham Hicks. And we did some EFT tapping in the car, kind of setting our intention. We laughed and joked a little bit.
yeah. I put that file cabinet in the back of the car, thinking I was going to take it to the Goodwill, like they were slowly getting rid of some of the stuff in the house, and I had these old file cabinets. and it rattled. And the
Forgot
Goodwill
that
didn't
it did
open
not
early enough, so
really. Yeah. So yeah,
so it
it's
rattled all the way
rattling
out there.
noise.
So it's really remembering to take care of yourself during this too, not to be able to step away when it gets too overwhelming, so that you're not one, they're not overwhelming yourself, but you're also not overwhelming the kids or your partner or
Because I kind of realized that when we first took Lexi out and looking at houses all over the world, and she was getting overwhelmed by it. As much as she wanted to come, it was really good the last 2 times that we went without her, because then we could openly discuss our challenges, our worries, our fears, our frustrations, the things we're concerned about, and kind of iron and hash that out without her hearing everything that we're saying and discussing.
I mean, we got a good, the nice part about taking her is we got a good feel of the things that she likes and don't like, and what she kind of wants. Like she wants a walking neighborhood, and she want that kind of stuff. So now we know that we looked for that when we were out today. Even we kind of said this would be good for Lexi. Lexi would like this.
She wanted somewhere she could walk to something like a store, or
Yeah.
looking at this cute little town of Stanley, and it's the neighborhood, the houses are close together, but there's places you can actually go to besides just walking in a neighborhood. Anyway, that was kind of what her ideal was. And yet she realized, you know, in looking at the different options, that yes, she wants to be able to walk. We all take walks in the neighborhood for exercise, and we like doing that. And yet being close to robotics was even more important.
Hmm.
So her realizing what really matters, and that's what I've really been focusing on with this move is, okay, because of our price range and our limitations with our budget, it's not going to be like everything I ever wanted. Yet what matters most to me? Where do I spend the most time? What can I do without? And like I realized I spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and we like to cook, and Lexi likes to cook, and we get together as a family and we cook a meal together and we play games. And so realizing that as much as I want the big bathroom and the big walk-in closet and the big soaking tub, as long as I have a tub that I can soak in, and you can always figure out adding closet space and places to put clothing. But I'm realizing, yeah, the kitchen, that kind of matters more to me. That's where I'm going to spend more time.
And she's actually talking about a house we looked at. 'Cause
Yes. It's very much on my mind.
it was coming across like this is an example, but it's really a real house that we looked at. But the
It's just
the
the process of making decisions and looking at pros and cons. And these are things that go on in all aspects of life that we have to do with lots of different areas of our life. We have to make decisions all the time. We have to decide this or this. We have to realize what's most important. And like you said about Lexi, and I remember asking her before we got started even looking, what do you want in a house? We want to get the things that we all want, since the three of us are the ones that live here primarily, and taking that into consideration. And it's been a process, and it's been a journey, and I think we've all learned a lot in this process and are still learning, because it hasn't been complete yet. And it's kind of like when we teach the communication skills class, we teach it because it's helping parents to communicate with their kids. And yet from it, you're learning better communication skills that apply to speaking with your spouse and speaking with other people in your life and speaking either in the business world or with other family members. And so these skills that we're learning with making these decisions, having to figure out how I'm going to help my mom and my dad out and meeting their needs and doing all these different things in ways as an example, I guess, to my kids of how you juggle a lot of different things at once. And is this making any sense, Don?
Well, yeah, and I think it goes. The other thing I was going to say is it's important to ask for help. When we're talking about dealing with your aging parent and all of that, is to be able to, even for you, for your mom, is to ask for help, to reach out. I tell people, is if you're in that place, look at the local church. Do they have support for you that they can come cut your grass, things like that? Well, it plays into, again, that same principle plays into all aspects. We've asked our oldest to look some things up for us and research certain things about the real estate market or the areas we're looking at. We've asked the realtor for things. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Because that,
Yeah, and taking care of yourself. Because like, especially thinking about me and how I jumped to help all these people. And after going to my mom's to help my dad looking at houses and then driving to Raleigh, my back flares up when I do a lot of sitting in the car. And so it was aggravating me. And I realized I wasn't getting out and walking. And that was affecting my own personal health, and realizing, okay, I can't expect to be the one to do it all. I'm mom, I'm super mom. I do everything. I take care of everybody. That's kind of been my persona. That's what I tend to take on. And yet that can be my downfall, is that my health and my well-being compromises from that. I suffer from depression, more like bipolar 2 disorder. And when my kids are dealing with issues, I take it on a lot.
Mhm.
And I'm having to realize how to support them and be there for them, but yet not feel like I have to absorb all their energy. And that's a skill I've been working on for some time, and had the opportunity to really practice that recently. And so you have to realize your limitations and realize what you can do and what you can't do. And it's, we brought our daughter back to Charlotte because we couldn't just stay up there at her place with her. We had other things we needed to take care of and other things we needed to do. And so not forgetting your own important priorities and not forgetting to take care of yourself, because that is so easy to happen. And I know that's happened in other times in our lives. I mean, after you recovered from your heart attack, I remember, because you went through rehab, and it was about 6 months after your heart attack that you were really back on your feet. And I came down with chronic bronchitis. Like, I was on antibiotics, I don't know how many times, and it just built up in me. And it took me a while. And then a year later, I was in a car accident, and that was difficult to come out of. And I've seen how in the past I've jumped in, I've had all this energy, and then it's depleted me, and it's shown up depression and other just physical illnesses and things. And so it's a juggling act, figuring out what you can do and what you can't do, and realizing there's certain things you need to let go of. As much as I wish I could be there all the time to help my dad,
And learning to delegate too,
my
what
mom's
you
making decisions, and I've got to let some of that go. And I've got to realize what I can and can't do, and not try to do it all and forget about myself.
Well, that's our podcast for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. We would love your comments, any topics you would like to hear about parenting, about the sandwich generation, kids. We would love to address those topics for you. If you want to know more about us, you can find out more information at our website about our coaching practice, the workshops we do, of course, the podcast and the blog that we do. And of course, we have Tuesday Tips, which is every Tuesday we do a short blog with just really effective tips for parents. We also email it.
It's a podcast. We air on Tuesdays, and it comes out as an email as well. It's 15 minutes or less podcast. That's in addition to these. All of this, Focused Healthy Family, at our website, at Facebook, Gina.FocusedHealthyFamily on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love feedback on the podcast, more discussions that we can have, upcoming classes and workshops that we'll be doing. We'd love to see you there, and we appreciate you joining us today.
And remember, how you speak to your children today shapes their future and yours. Take care.